In the heart of the Pacific Northwest, nestled among rolling hills, lies Moscow, Idaho. A picturesque college town known for its tranquil streets and a close-knit community. But beneath this serene facade, in November 2022, a tragedy unfolded that would shatter its peace and capture the attention of the whole nation. Welcome to True Crime Case Files, which brings light to the darkest and most chilling stories. My name is James, and today we'll unfold the layers of a case that gripped the world, the Moscow murders. The brutal and inexplicable loss of 4 young lives at the University of Idaho, Kaylee Gonsalves, Madison Mogen, Zana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin, 4 students with bright futures, lives tragically cut short. In this episode, we explore the terrifying events of that fateful night, the intense investigation that followed, and the unwavering quest for justice. Moscow, Idaho, a town where the unexpected is rare. With no recorded murders since 2015, the tranquility of this college town, home to 25,000 residents, stood undisturbed. But beneath this calm surface, an eerie storm was brewing, and it would leave an indelible mark on the town's history. The victims of this unforeseen tragedy, Kaylee, Madison, Zana, and Ethan, students of the University of Idaho, each with dreams, aspirations, and a zest for life. They represented the best of what we all hope for in our youth: ambition, joy, and the promise of tomorrow. Kaylee and Madison, best friends since high school, known for their infectious laughter and boundless energy. Zana, a vibrant spirit with a passion for life, and Ethan, her caring and dedicated boyfriend. Together, they embodied the hopes of a new generation. Their lives, interwoven with the fabric of this university town, were about to take a turn into the unknown, a night that would transform Moscow from a haven of peace into a landscape of mystery and fear. November 13th, 2022, a date now etched in the annals of Moscow's history. It was a typical Sunday morning until a 911 call shattered the silence, revealing a scene of unimaginable horror. Inside an off-campus house lay the bodies of Kaylee, Madison, Zana, and Ethan, the quiet of the early hours broken by a heinous act. Stabbed to death, their lives brutally taken in what should have been the safety of their home. The coroner's report painted a chilling picture: multiple stab wounds, some with defensive marks as the victims attempted to fend off their intruder. There was no indication of sexual assault. According to the police, the victims were sleeping peacefully in their beds when they were attacked with a large, fixed-blade knife. A community's heartbreak began to unfold as the sun rose over Moscow that day. The student's house, once filled with the vibrancy of young life, now stood as a somber reminder of the fragility of life. The question on everyone's lips: why? Why would anyone commit this senseless violence? As Moscow grappled with the shock, the gears of justice began to turn, setting off an investigation that would span months and cross state lines. An investigation that sought to answer the haunting question: who was behind the Moscow murders? The quiet of Moscow was now pierced by the sirens of an unfolding investigation. A team of local officers, aided by the FBI and Idaho State Police, converged on the scene. Under the leadership of Chief James Fry, a seasoned officer with FBI training, the investigation took shape. This collective force embarked on a journey through a maze of evidence, seeking answers in a case that had left a community reeling. The rarity of such a crime in this small town meant every clue, every lead was critical. The early days were filled with more questions than answers. Who could commit such a crime? Was this an act of random violence or something more sinister? As the town of Moscow awaited answers, the investigators worked tirelessly, piecing together the events of that night. The surviving roommate saw a tall man dressed in black, with a mask covering his mouth and nose. Not very muscular, but athletically built with bushy eyebrows. The man walked past her and exited through the sliding glass door. The roommate stood in a frozen shock within a hair's breadth of death. With every passing hour, the pressure mounted. The community needed closure, the families deserved justice, and the world watched, waiting for a break in the case. Little did they know, the answers were closer than anyone could have imagined. The small town of Moscow stood at the heart of a mystery that was about to take a dramatic turn. As the investigation deepened, a breakthrough emerged. The focus shifted to a figure not previously on the public radar, Bryan Kohberger, a 28-year-old PhD student. Kohberger, studying criminal justice and criminology, seemed an unlikely suspect. Yet, as the layers of his life unfolded, a different picture began to emerge. His proximity to the crime scene, his studies, and his movements on that fateful night brought him into the spotlight of suspicion. The investigation revealed a trail of digital footprints. Cell phone data placed Kohberger near the crime scene, and a white Hyundai Elantra, similar to his, was captured on security cameras. One of the investigators believes Kohberger had been scouting out the house to know when people were coming and going. The suspect was also repeatedly seen placing trash bags inside a neighbor's garbage can while wearing surgical gloves. And a black face mask was found in his home. But it was the DNA evidence, discovered on a tan leather knife sheath on Mogan's bed, a crucial piece of the puzzle that intensified the focus on Kohberger. It was also discovered that 2 weeks prior to the murders, he had sent numerous messages to one of the victims on Instagram to which she didn't respond. He just said, "Hey, how are you?" in essence. However, he persisted in doing so. Presumably, the recipient of his messages was Mogan, but we can't 100% confirm this information. And she could probably be his target. According to Mary Ellen O'Toole, a former FBI profiler, a psychopath, whose victims are typically strangers, could be triggered by the smallest perceived rejection or dismissal. These kinds of criminals, she said, end up as injustice collectors. Kohberger's arrest in Pennsylvania marked a turning point in the case. Seized items, a knife sheath left at the crime scene, and DNA comparisons formed the backbone of the charges against him. 4 counts of felony first-degree murder and a felony burglary charge now loomed over the once aspiring criminologist. As Kohberger faces the legal system, questions linger. What led to this tragic event? What goes on in the mind of someone accused of such a crime? The community, the victims' families, and a watchful world await answers in the impending trial. Kohberger, who had an associate degree in psychology, was pursuing a PhD in criminology at Washington State University when the crimes occurred. His academic interests included studying the motives of criminals and how prosecutors gather evidence. O'Toole, a former FBI profiler, notes that while some individuals with psychopathic tendencies may have a fascination with criminals, this interest does not necessarily lead to violent behavior. Kohberger was described by one of his professors, Michelle Bolger, as a brilliant student, indicating his academic proficiency. However, O'Toole points out that despite his academic background, the mistakes he allegedly made during the commission of the crimes, such as leaving behind a knife sheath and being captured on camera, indicate a lack of practical criminal expertise. She also doubts that his actions were driven by experimental or scholarly interests, suggesting instead that they were need-driven and possibly motivated by hatred to women. This psychological sketch presents a complex picture: an academically proficient individual with a deep interest in criminology and criminal psychology. However, he was potentially driven by deeper, more personal motives. As we know, there already have been notable instances where individuals who committed serious crimes had educational backgrounds in fields related to psychology, justice, or criminology. Ted Kaczynski, the Harvard-educated mathematician who used mail bombs to kill 3 people and injured 23. Though his field of study was not directly related to criminology or psychology, his high level of education is noteworthy. Ted Bundy. America's evil serial killer had a degree in psychology before entering law school. Bundy is known to have learned one of his ruses from psychology experiments. highlighting a direct application of his academic knowledge in his criminal activities. The serial killers Timothy Krejcir and Dennis BTK Rader both studied subjects related to criminal justice. At University, Kohberger studied under well-known forensic psychologist Katherine Ramsland, who interviewed the BTK serial killer and co-wrote a book on him. Krejcir received a BA in the administration of justice with a minor in psychology, and Rader received a similar degree from Wichita State University. Their studies were more directly linked to the field of criminal justice. One of the reasons why criminals study criminology is because they try to figure themselves out, as well as make it more difficult to catch them. Much like Ted Bundy, Kohberger couldn't interact with women in a normal way. Chris Swecker, the retired head of the FBI's Criminal Investigation Division, said, "This was Kohberger's way of possessing those women and having total control." As the case against Bryan Kohberger moves through the judicial system, the community of Moscow, still reeling from the shock, is waiting for closure. Kohberger declined to offer a plea, so the judge entered a not guilty plea on his behalf. Kohberger's attorneys emphasized a total lack of DNA evidence from the victims in Kohberger's home or car, which on the other hand is understandable as the victims never visited his home or sat in his car. Also, the car was thoroughly washed, and he had more than enough time to get rid of the evidence. The police said Kohberger had been seen cleaning his car out with bleach. Kohberger's older sibling believed that her brother was involved in the murders at the University of Idaho before his arrest because of his bizarre behavior, including constantly wearing latex gloves inside their own home. His sister pointed out that, at the time of the stabbings, her brother was living just 15 minutes from the crime scene, and he drove the same make and color of car seen near the student's house. The prosecutors will seek the death penalty for Bryan Kohberger. He could be executed by firing squad if the state is unable to get the drugs required for a lethal injection. The preliminary hearings, court proceedings, and the inevitable trial. Each step is watched closely by those seeking justice for Kaylee, Madison, Zana, and Ethan. The community's pain of loss is excruciating, the desire for answers profound. As we await the outcome of the legal process, the heart-wrenching story of the Moscow murders reminds us of the fragility of life and the resilience of community. The collective pursuit of justice and the hope for healing remain a guiding light which shines through in the midst of darkness. We extend our deepest sympathy to the families and friends of the victims, the University of Idaho community, and all those affected by this tragedy. While justice takes its course, the memories of Kaylee, Madison, Zana, and Ethan continue to live on, inspiring us to cherish every moment and stand together in the face of adversity. Thank you for joining me on True Crime Case Files. To my viewers, your thirst for understanding these complex narratives keeps me driven. Please, share your thoughts in the comments. For more deep dives into the challenging mysteries and captivating true crime stories, subscribe to my channel. In the next episode, I'll uncover another chilling case that awaits its turn in the spotlight. Not to miss it, hit the bell for notifications and be part of the journey through the unexplored paths of true crime. See you next time.